Magnates Media has built an empire on YouTube, gaining them 1.7 million subscribers by creating mesmerizing documentaries on YouTube. Today, we will dive into DaVinci Resolve 3D space and learn how to create some of these amazing animations. And it all starts by reverse engineering their amazing videos like this one here.
P.T. Barnum was one of the richest and most famous men in America. And then, in a matter of weeks, he lost everything. On the one hand, this is a story about a man who built his fortune through lies and exploitation. Because before Barnum was a successful businessman and global celebrity, he scammed people out of their money by claiming he'd discovered mermaids, cavemen, and a 161-year-old woman. And the truth is much darker and twisted than you may think.
If you want your animations to look like that, then you're in the right place. This video is brought to you by Prom AI, but more on that later. I know what you're thinking. Do I really need to sit through a 2-hour tutorial? Let's break down who this video is for to be sure we are filling your toolbox with the equipment you need. If you were just looking for a tutorial where you can download assets, follow along step by step on the animations, then you can download the assets from the description below, check the chapter markers, and jump ahead to where you need to go. But if you want to edit like the pros, work with clients, craft animations that stand out, you need more than just assets. You need to master reverse engineering, asset creation, and 3D animation. This tutorial is going to break all of that down and make the process simple for you to understand so you can use the skills learned to enhance all of your edits in the future. And just so you know, we're editing in 3D space, so you must have a 3-button mouse in order to navigate correctly. So let's jump on YouTube and take a look at the video we will be working with. Okay, so here on YouTube, you can see I've already gone to The Greatest Showman, The Dark Truth, which is the video we're going to look at. I have my own sourced media where I downloaded. I'm not providing you that. That's up to you on here. But what I want to show you is once you start playing the video, you can come up here and right click, come down to Stats for Nerds. And then once you do that, you can see here, we see the current optimal resolution, which is the third one down, and it says it's 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. And so that's great. That shows us that they edited this video in 30 frames per second, so we know what we want to do for our timeline. Great. Now that we have that video analyzed, it's time to jump into DaVinci Resolve. So now I have that video, The Greatest Showman, and I created a little compound clip that is only the length that I actually need. So this way, I can set that onto the timeline here. And now I'm going to change this from 1 screen to 2 screen because that's how I actually edit. And for this, it's really going to be helpful for me. So I'm going to teach you how to do that too if you have 2 screens. What you can do is you can come up here to Workspace, you click on this, and you come down to dual screen and select on. So now you see this has done that, and there's actually a second screen. Let me show you that. All right, so now this is what my upper screen, I have a 27-inch screen up above, and this is what that looks like at this moment. So I'm going to come back down here to the 40-inch screen, which I'm not using the full screen for this video because it wouldn't actually fit your screen correctly. So I had to kind of squish it a bit here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Workspace, I'm going to come down to that dual screen again, and I'm going to hit full screen timeline. What that does, that allows this 40-inch screen down here be only a timeline. So as you can see, like I can close my inspector and, I just have the full timeline. But then once I go back to my 27-inch, you can see I have all of this like that. And that's how we set this up for the 2 monitors on the edit page. So now what I need to do is add a fusion composition to the timeline. So I'm going to come up here and I have under my favorites in my toolbox, I have my fusion compositions there. I'm just going to grab that and I'm going to drag it straight down here onto this timeline. I'm going to bring it all the way to the beginning. Next, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to drag it all of the way over. So this way it matches the entire length of that clip. So then I can click here and go into Fusion. So as I mentioned, I have the 2 monitors, and this is what we see in Fusion for the lower monitor. And let me switch to my upper monitor. And here you can see I have my spline, which is here, and then down here will be all my keyframes. This makes editing with Fusion so simple. All right, so while I'm up here in this upper monitor, I can go up to the top left and find my media. That's where this is. And I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to drag it all the way down into my lower monitor and drop it right here. I'm going to go ahead and connect it. And now you can see I have the video up here. And what we need to do now is scrub through the timeline, and we're going to make a list of all of the things that we need. First thing we see here is this here is a red curtain. So let's take note of that. Now here we have this man, and we need to recreate this scene. This will be scene 1, and we see we have the showman, and behind him we have a couple angry faces with these top hats on, and then we have the circus tent or something in the back, looks like a wall. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a circus tent just to make this a little bit more simplified. So I'm going to have a circus tent, 2 faces, the showman, plus the red curtain. Now, as we can see in the environment here, we also have some clouds. We're going to need to get some of them. All right, next, which is very important, we see that we have this text and we have some lens flare. So we're going to need lens flare and we're going to need the text. And this text does not come with DaVinci. So what the font do you think it is? I guess that's what we're going to have to do. Let's go ahead and check that out. Go to whatthefont.com. And we're going to find out how to get that. While that page is loading, let me switch back. So what we need to do is find out what this font. So what you can do is go ahead and create a screenshot. And I'm going to do that with you here. Capture the screenshot, and then you can come here. We can upload an image. So we go ahead and select this. So I'm going to just drag the image and just drop it right onto this web page, and it's going to identify the text. As you can see, it selected this one. So select identify font. And once you go ahead and find one that you like, now you can also check over here. As you see, some of these are going to cost money and some will be free. So you can go ahead, you can search through and find the font you want. However, you don't have to do that because I did find a free font, which is included in that package that's in the link in the description. And you'll be able to follow along and use a very similar font, the one that I used in my video. However, I wanted to teach you how to source the material, and that's a very important part. So the font that I actually found is IFC Railroad Bold, which was free, and that was a very close one, so that's what I used in my video. Now let's go ahead, scrub forward, see what else we need. Okay, so now we're getting to the people. As you can see here, we have this woman with the black dress, and he just doubled them up when in the edit. And there's this girl here. She's like blonde, so in a white dress. So we got a blonde girl, white dress. We're pulling back. We have this guy in a vest. We have this guy in like, he's got a dark coat on. It looks like they doubled this girl up, so we're going to use the same girl twice. Well, actually, they used this same guy twice, so you could do that. And there's this guy in a vest, this guy in a vest, or, you know, we can switch it up a little bit if you wanted to make it more interesting. We see this environment here. We have a building, so you're going to have to make a building, and we see some rain, so we need some rain there. Now we're going to pull out into scene 3, and scene 3 starts, we have a table, and the next things that we have is a picture of a mermaid, a caveman, and there's an old woman. Okay, so I made a little list for you. Let's go ahead and take a look at it here. So you see here, these are the things that you need. Let's create the assets we need in order to create our animation. In the description below, you will see an affiliate link for Prom AI, or you can use the AI of your choice. However, you can still follow along with me there. Also, if you put in the coupon code CHAD25, they will give you some free coins to use. Okay, so now that I'm here on the Prom AI website, we can go ahead and just quickly navigate, and you can see that people were doing a lot of image generation. And this one is really amazing when it comes to creating architecture and stuff like that. So if you do a hand-drawn layout for your home or something, it can actually create a 3D image of your home and things from those layouts. However, I use this to create the text, the image that we need for this video specific. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to AI tools and click that. And then here we're going to find AI image generator. I'm going to select here, and I'm going to go to my generation and history. Once this comes up, you can see I did a lot of different curtains, and actually this is the one that I used, and I'm sending to you in, through the description there. Also, you can see I created these different stages. I just happened to take this one. I didn't spend too much time on this specifically. When it came to creating the mermaid, the caveman, and the old woman, you can see it generated very good quality pictures right off the bat, so I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time getting the look that I wanted. Now the original look, now the hardest part was creating the P.T. Barnum or the showman guy that started in the very beginning of the video. However, with this AI, I was really able to capture the style that I wanted, which was a little bit darker and stuff like that. And of course, I used this for a client as well. As you can see, I'm making videos for feng shui, so I had to create a lot of images regarding some Chinese things as well as the Chinese zodiacs, which, came out pretty good. Some nice dragons. Okay, so the next thing we can do is we can come here to where it says assets and click on that. So if you've saved some assets, you can come here to them. And what's also nice is you'll be able to utilize and remix your prompt. So as you can see here, to generate this one, which is the one I chose. Personally, I did like his hair a little bit more, but the angle was more appropriate was from this one. So you can see here's the prompt. You can go ahead and utilize that if that's something you want, or you can also click here for enhance prompt. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now, here's a quick tip. As you saw at the end of my video for my edit, I used 16:9 on the photo. So if you want to make your edit even better than what I did, keep in mind that what they used was more like a 4:3, and that was a detail I overlooked. However, it was just for a tutorial, not for the client, so I didn't correct that. I just kept it as it was. But you can do whatever you think is best. Let's go ahead and just generate and see what we get from here, because we're going to generate a few new images. Now, actually, this came out pretty good. I'm really impressed. You know, this was the same guy, but yeah, this actually looks pretty good. As you can see here, this is the list of everything that you need to do. And if you come down here, you'll see there's clouds, rain, lens flare. These three things I was not able to actually make in the AI, but everything else, you just go ahead, look at this list, and make all of those things. Now that we have our assets created from AI and downloaded, we need to make some tweaks and edits. This chapter will cover some of the things in Photoshop. If you do not need this section, just skip to the next chapter. Okay, so now that you've made images, not everything is perfect, and what you need to do is actually Photoshop them or something like that. I personally use Photoshop. I am a photographer, so Photoshop's naturally what I use. And what I'm going to do is bring in some of the image just to show you what you can do. You can find your own program, like say you want to use Canva or something like that. However, I'm going to use Photoshop. Okay, so here in Photoshop, the first thing I needed to do was cut this person out. Photoshop makes this pretty easy. You can do just like a selection tool or something and just select the person. I'm just going to do a real rough job here. I'm not going to do anything good, just to show you how stuff works. Normally, I would go through and like really work the edges and stuff. So I just go ahead and select that, press Command J, and I'm just going to remove the background. And just like that, I have a background removed. Now, other things that you have to consider, like, okay, so we have this guy here, but his head's looking that way and it just doesn't fit the video. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to select the body. I'm just going to do a rough job here. I don't need to do it perfectly. So as you can see, I just have a rough setup for that, and I just press Command J. And then I'm going to go here. Now I have body without a head. We're going to go ahead and come back to this one. What I'm going to do is just select his head. All right, looks like he's wearing a collar, and the other guy had a collar too, so I'll just leave the collar on there. Just get a rough estimate of the head here, duplicate that, then I'm going to grab just that and I'll drag it right over here and we'll drop it right on there. And then I can size it down to make it fit. Of course, this is also low resolution, so I would use something to upscale it or something before editing. However, I just wanted to show you what you have to do in Photoshop with all your photos and creating that. Now, another thing you may run into is that the body doesn't have legs, doesn't have feet. You need to extend something. So real quick, let's go ahead and check how to do that. So what I'm going to do is just like scroll down, and in Photoshop, this is real simple. I'm just going to hit the C and I'm going to drag this down right to about there. Then I'm just going to grab this little tool here. I'm going to come over here, grab this, just go straight down, make a little square there. All right, so when you do that, make sure you select this. Then we're going to go to edit. We're going to come down to generative fill, and we're just going to type in extend image. It's going to take a moment for that to run through, but then once it does, I'll show you what to do from there. All right, so now you can see this is what came up, and that doesn't work. With Photoshop, luckily we get 3 of them. So there's this one and there's this one. I'm probably going to go with this one. I don't need the shoes. While I have this image selected, then I'm going to go ahead and use my selection tool again, and we're just going to select the leg. All right, so just get a rough selection. I'm just going to copy that and eliminate this. So if you have that, go ahead and just hit this little thing here. That way you can select here and press B and just use your brush tool and you can get rid of those lines. All right, so make sure you spend more time trying to do these, get the details in there looking right. This is just an example of what you can do and using Photoshop. Now we have all of our assets ready to go, or you have downloaded the assets I have created. Being organized is very important, so you can follow along and be sure to have your folder structure set up for easy access. Now let's jump in. Here I have the tutorial media, which are the files that you needed to download from the link in the description. And And inside of here, we'll just quickly go over what that is. So then this way, we can stay organized with each other. So here under scene 1, this is what we're going to be using. However, underneath of here is the text and lens flare. So if you do not have the text, you should use this. You see this IFC Railroad 2.ttf. This is the file that you need to install, and that is your font. If you're on a Mac, you just drop it into your font book. If you're on Windows, well, I'm not really sure exactly how to do that, but I'm sure you can find a tutorial if you need. All right, so anyway, what I want you to do is to make it nice and neat in these folders like this. As you can see, I have this under tutorial, but you should have something set up here on master. And if you're looking at my screen and wondering, why is this much different than mine? It's because I'm using 2 monitors and I'm going to go switch back and forth between them 2. However, you'll be able to see everything that I have, and what you are using is going to be very similar. So anyway, this is on the edit page. Let me bring it back to start to the same way with you. I'm going to turn my dual screen off. Okay, so now I've turned my dual screen off. This way you can see we should be looking at the same thing now here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this tutorial media, drag it up under here to master, and just drop it there. Okay, once you've done that, of course, you see I already have a bunch of other stuff going on there, but you'll get your little tutorial media folder here, just like I did by dragging and dropping that in there, and it has those scenes and the text and the lens flare there. So you go ahead and do that. So now that we are here, I'm going to go ahead and drag my media out over here. I am not going to work in just one viewer. I actually use 2 monitors, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to come up here. You don't have to do this if you don't have dual monitors, but I do, so I'm going to turn dual screen on. And as you can see, it really changed it. However, this monitor is actually not the main monitor for me. I'm going to drag this down to the other monitor. And once I do that, that brings this up for here. So as you can see, I have my spline, and down here I have my keyframes. Now I'm just going to switch over to the other monitor. All right, so I've transitioned to the other monitor. Just let me drag this out. So now here I am on this monitor, and this is what I'm going to be using, and I'll switch back and forth between this one and the other one as needed. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that these 2 windows are open. On this monitor, I have my media pool, so I can click on that, I can grab my reference, and I'm going to drag this down into the other one and drop it on there. And now let me just go ahead and double click this tutorial media, because I just want to show you. This part is what you need to do, is double click that scene 1, open that up, and we're just going to select everything here, and we're going to drag that down and drop it. Great, and now that I've dropped it, you can see it's all connected with merges, and we don't need any of them, so we're just going to delete those merges. So we have all of our media right here, and we have a media out. I'm going to hit that on 1, that's my reference, okay? So let's go ahead and start renaming thing, and I'm going to turn this one to reference. Now I'm going to use this one. I'm just going to hit 2 so I can see it in this window, and you can see this is the angry face. So let's rename that to face. If you want to know how to rename it, you can hit F2, or you can right click and you can come up here and click rename. So this one is the tent. Clouds. Now the clouds we're not going to use inside of this one just yet, so I'm just putting it over there to the side. And then let's see, this one is the curtain, and this one here is our showman. Great, now that everything is labeled, we're going to start creating a 3D environment. If you've never worked with a 3D environment, don't worry, as I will show you how to simplify the workflow. So now to make this 3D, we cannot just use a 2D image. We actually have to create it into 3D space. So the first thing we're going to do is create the curtain, because that was the first thing we saw. So I'm going to go all the way over, and first thing we see is that. To turn this into 3D space, we need to add what we call an image plane 3D, which on this menu here, you can see this one right here. This is the image plane 3D. If you hover over it long enough, it'll pop up and show you. So what I'm going to do is just take this and connect it to that, and it'll go right in that green input. Now it's on that image plane 3D. If I press a 1, you're going to see it like this, and that's in 3D space. And this is why that mouse is very important to have for the third button, because using that third button, if I click and hold, I can drag it around. If I press command, I can zoom in and out. If I'm scrolling up and down, that's how that goes. You know, if I click option or alt, and drag, then I can spin it around. So it's really, really helpful for the 3D space, and you really have to have a 3-button mouse to do this. The next important thing is that we have to build out the rest of our structure here. And right in the middle, we have our merge node. So go ahead and click in here where our nodes go, and then click the merge. And that's going to drop a merge. And then we need a camera. So we're going to click on camera 3D, which is right next to the merge. And then we need a renderer. If you click that, it's going to just connect them all. So as you can see, the output of the camera goes into the merge here on the yellow. The output of the merge goes to the yellow of the renderer. And then the renderer will turn this from 3D space into the 2D space. So we need to connect that into the media. Let me just move these things up, keep this a little bit more organized so it makes sense. So now I'm going to grab our image plane 3D and connect that to our merge. So now what you can do is you can check your different nodes and see how things look. So for example, merge 3D1, if I press 1, it's going to bring it up into that monitor, and everything that is connected to this merge is going to be shown there. Now, another thing you can do is drag and drop it into a window. So, for example, the media out, if I just drag that and drop it into this, I'm going to see what goes through the media out. However, what you see here is nothing. And the reason why there's nothing is because the camera is actually right on the exact same plane. So let me just go ahead over here and show you. As you can see, the camera hits right here, so it's only viewing nothing. So what we're going to have to do is move our camera back. So to move our camera back, we're going to come up here to where the transform is under the inspector and click on transform. Then we have this Z. If you pull to the left, it's going to move it forward. If you pull it to the right, it's going to move it back. So as we move back, as you can see, we start seeing that. And what we want to bring this back to is say 0.92. This is where it was in the video for me. We're going to have to add some other elements, but first, let's start with how the camera movement works. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take my reference. This way we can see what happens. I'm going to press 1. And I'm going to start bringing it over like so. As you can see, the camera moves to the right, and it goes until right about here on frame 27. So what I'm going to do is grab my camera again. On that transform on the X. The X-axis is what's going to give me my left and right. My Y-axis gives me up and down. And my Z is the forward and back. And that's on the translation, just remember. So here on this translation X, we're going to go ahead and click this keyframe. Let's go ahead and go back to frame 1, because I did not set the keyframe there, and make sure we select that. So now we know that we're there, and the next one is here. So I'm going to move my camera on frame 27 over to the right by, you can either click here and drag this, or you can click here and drag right and left. This will give you a little more fine-tuned adjustment, and if you click here and you hit command or control and you do this, you'll get even finer adjustments. So keep that in mind and utilize that where you need to. All right, so let's move this one over to the right. Final adjustment is here at 0.818, and I'm going to go back, and let's just go ahead and play it and see how it works together. So as you can see, this goes much faster than ours is going, and that's because we haven't done any curve adjustment. So we're going to have to adjust those curves to see how that is. So let's go ahead and open up the spline window. So now I'm here on the spline window. I'm just going to hit this as zoom to fit. I'm going to select all of these. One way to smooth things is to hit the S. And once you hit the S key, it's going to smooth it out. And you can hit the T, and that's going to give you ease in and ease out. So this way we can make some adjustments there. However, we don't want to ease it in because that was actually making it slower. So it's going to take a lot longer to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab this one here. To speed it up, I want to bring it all the way up. You see this line that this one's on? It's just above that line. I'm going to bring that over like this. I'm just going to be just above that line there. And I want it to be right around 22 on the ease out. And when it comes to easing in, let's go ahead and ease it in more. All right, so my finished product was right here at 61 and ease out is at 22. So now let's check and see how that looks. As you can see, it is nice and smooth. So let's go ahead and build out the environment there. So what I'm going to do now is add in our tent, okay? So we need our tent, which is going to be the back. We need the faces in the back there, and we need our showman. All right, so let's just grab all of them. This way we can rebuild this again here. So as you see, the curtain was connected to that image plane, right? So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to add an image plane to each one of them. So with the showman selected, I'm just going to click this, and it's going to add that image plane. Then the tent, same thing, click that, and the face. Now I'm going to click on this merge, and let's press the 1 key. And now, as you can see, it has added us over to here. We can see everything that's going on. And now we can see the curtain is over there while our camera has moved over this way. So let's get back over to frame 27. Let's start with the tent. We're going to grab the tent. Just grab the output of the tent and drag it to that merge 3D. Now merge 3D is like a multi-merge. You can attach as much as you want to it. So once we've attached that merge 3D, you don't see anything here, but in this left viewer, you do see that that is on the same place as what the curtain was, and that's not what we want. We actually want to move that one back. We're not going to move our camera back, we need to move the tent itself back. So go ahead and select the image plane 3D of the tent, go up to the transform, and just like we moved the camera, we're going to move the Z translation, which is the forward and back, for the tent. But we're going to move it to the left this time because we want it to go back. As you can see here, it has a negative number. So for the negative number that I went with on this was minus 2.6. However, you can see that it doesn't fill the screen here. So now what we're going to do is we need to scale it up. Okay, so come down here and you can see scale. And we're going to increase the scale. 2.197 is the actual size that I used. And as you can see, it's not in the center. So what I did was I moved our x-axis here over until it became in the center. So right there is pretty good. We got 0.817. If you're following my exact locations, you can change it a little bit if you need to. Play around with it, but you have my settings here. You can follow exactly along with them and just learn how to do the motions if necessary. I'm actually going to organize this the way I originally had. So I'm putting this one above, this one over here. My showman, and bring him over here for now, and the faces were up here. All right, so now the showman will be next. That's the next one that goes in the middle. So let's go ahead, grab the output of that one, drag it into our 3D merge, and just let it go, and that's going to attach it. And as you can see, he is on the plane with the curtain, just like before. So we need to make some adjustments to there. Let's go up to that transform. Now we've got our transform here, and let's bring him into the center of the frame. To bring him over to the center, we're going to grab that x-axis again, and we're going to pull it to the right. All right, so we go to 0.773 right in the middle, and you see he's way too big and he's way too close. So let's move him back. All right, move him right about there at 1.31, and now let's scale him down because he's too big. And as you can see, he's just like way too tall. What we want to do is make sure we get him into the right position. So one thing that you can do is click inside this window, and I'm going to press Command G. Then I'm going to grab my reference, and I'm going to click in that window, and I'm going to press Command G again. And as you can see, I now have these guides in each one of those windows, and that allows me to move him around to the exact location that I want. So I'm going to use that image plane 3D for the showman, and I'm going to bring the y-axis down. This way I can match him up here. I'm going to bring that chin down just a little bit underneath that line. As you can see, the chin's there and the nose is right around there. All right, so I'm also looking at the head here. So this is pretty close, and that'll be a good start for us right there. So now I got my showman. I've got my circus tent is here, my curtain is there, and the next thing we need to do is put the faces behind him. So as you can see, we only did one face, which is okay, because we're actually going to instance that later. So just go ahead, grab the output of that face and put it to the 3D merge. So now that we have this connected to our 3D merge, let's go ahead and click that 3D merge again and press 1. So this way we can see that's where that is. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to move this face. It's actually going to be pretty close to the tent in the back. I'm going to go ahead and move that Z-axis back. Got that back to right about where I want it. I'm going to use my reference. I'm going to try to keep that there, and you can try to look at mine if you need to, and then try to line these up from doing that. So let's go back onto this image plane for the face. I'm going to move this one over. All right, so this one I'm putting over here on the right at 1.138, and then I need to move my y-axis to 0.118. That brings it up, and then we are going to scale that down a bit. Yeah, so once you get that size and you get your location, you put it in there like that. These are just my exact settings that I had created, but you should go ahead, just try to play around with it, size it up, and get it right by manually doing it. To keep things short in this really long tutorial, I just have to type these things in as it is. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy our face and our image plane. All right, so you can just go ahead, drag and select the two of that, press Command or Control C, and then you're going to come over here and you can press Command Shift and V or Control Shift and V. And what that's going to do is create an instance, which is basically a copy of this one. And then anything I do to this is going to change this. So let's go ahead, grab the output of that and stick it into our merge. Now we have two of them. So let's click off of it, make sure nothing is selected. Click your instance. Then we're going to come back to our transform. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up to our X on our translation. We're going to right click here and we're going to de-instance. This way, everything else here is the same. And what we can do is move this one over to the left. So now you see we have the exact same settings and size and everything. And then we just going to try to match it up to where this one here is. All right, so as you can see, this one's a little bit further over and I moved mine over here like that. So now I'm at 0.353. Now that we're at this point, we have our entire scene kind of sort of built out. What we're going to do is just go ahead and bring that back and let's check and see how it looks. You know, it's pretty similar. It's not perfect, but it's pretty similar. And now that we're at this point, what we're going to do is learn about creating this 3D space into 2D space. So let's go ahead, grab our media out, move that over. Let's rename these. This is really important that we make sure this is organized. So go ahead and rename them. So this is going to be our face. I'm just going to underscore and put R. Actually, let me put that on the right side so we know. And then here on the instant face, let's rename that one to face L. So everything that happens within here is my 3D space. I'm going to go ahead and select all that and press Command or Control and G. And that's going to create a group. Right click on this and rename that to Scene 1. Great. So now we have Scene 1 all connected and we'll end up putting these clouds and stuff on the outside of that. That's actually what I found to be better. Now all of this is our 3D space. However, right here, everything here is our 2D space. If I go ahead and open this back up, say if you select your merge 3D and we want to change the color, we want to make this color more yellowish, all right? So here on the 3D one, I'm going to press Shift Space. I'm going to try to use the normal nodes that we're used to. So like say a color corrector, CC. Hit enter, the color corrector pops up here, but look, it's not attached and you cannot attach it inside of there, right? And the reason why is because this is in 3D space, all right? This color corrector is a 2D space node. So I'm going to delete that, and out here, let's go ahead, just click out here, press Shift Space, and do the color corrector here. Color corrector, we're going to add that. Okay, so now I have the color corrector here. I'm going to press Shift over this. I'm going to do, and as you can see, it is now here. It's connecting, and from here, I can go ahead and start making the adjustments and say I want to add that yellow to it here. We can take maybe some of that contrast out a little bit there or something, maybe some of that gain down, pull out some of that lift. All right, so you can go crazy and do all of that stuff, you know, do your color correction, mess with all of this stuff here if you want to, and that's how you do that. So this is here in the 2D space, okay? I'm just going to press Command E or Control E, and that's going to close that. That goes into this color corrector, and it goes to the media out. So everything that happens past this is now in 2D space. However, we're going to turn that back into 3D space again. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to come over here next to this media out. We'll click on this line and make that disappear. And do you remember how we created our 3D environment? Is we're going to do the same exact thing here. So click here. We're going to click on that merge, the camera, and the renderer. There we go. We have 3D space again. So go ahead and connect your renderer to your media out. And as you can see, this is renderer 2. I'm going to pull that over. And something I forgot to do in scene 1, and we should do that on all of them, is here on the renderer. We're going to click that. Now, my computer's powerful enough, I can do this. Once you click your renderer, you can come up here, renderer type, click here and go to hardware renderer. Now that's going to use your GPU to render things. It'll be a little bit faster and better. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that. What we need to do is turn this into 3D space again. And the way to do that is to add an image plane 3D. We're just going to connect that to that image plane 3D, connect that to the merge. And now we have this entire scene that we had before back into 3D. And look, we can't see anything again. Click on that merge. I'm going to press 1. And as you can see, it's all in there exactly like it was in the very beginning of the video. So we have to move our camera 3D back. So where we're going to start here, let's go back to frame 27. Go ahead and take our camera, go up to our transform, select that Z axis under the train, and we're going to go to 1.65. All right, and that's the exact size and the start point that I want to be at. Now, we are going to start building out the text and things like that out here, but we are going to need to go back into scene 1 to do work too. So, all right, so I'm going to select my reference. I'm going to press 1. What I want to know is what happens from this point forward from 27. So let's see. Okay, so it zooms in a bit as we go. And while it's zooming in, you can see there's some text comes up, the lens flares come on, and then it zooms out and goes back and it completely changes into a completely different scene. Let's go back to 27. We're going to select on that camera 3D, and I'm going to go ahead and keyframe my translation X, Y, and Z. So once we figure that out, we need to know what frame do we have to go up to. All right, so I'm going to we're just going to go ahead, drag this over until it stops. All right, so he stops right here at 162. We're going to zoom this one in a bit. All right, so I zoomed into 1.4. As you can see, we want to kind of match it up here with the nose and the hair and all that kind of stuff. And actually, what's going on here is I didn't move him enough. And so what I'm going to do is, this is where I want to go back into my scene 1. Once you're over here, I'm just going to drag that over a bit like this. I'm going to press Command E, open that up. So then this way, I'm pretty sure the way I did the original video was I actually used that image plane and I moved my showman as well. So let's go back to frame 27. All right, with frame 27 and the showman, I have his image plane, and let's see, I'm going to select my scale. Okay, I believe that I had also selected my Y axis. So now that we're there, we're going to jump forward to 162. So on 162, frame 162, we are now going to make some adjustments here. All right, so I adjusted him up to 0.753. And then I needed to bring him down, and that's why I used the Y-axis. So, we want to try to match up the hair and stuff like that there. So let's go ahead and bring that down. All right, so I went with minus 0.373, and that's about the location that I could get this guy at. All right, great. So now let's go ahead and smooth out the spline there. All right, so I'm going to start by smoothing the showman's. All right, so I have my image plane 3D for the showman is selected. Let me go ahead, click on this. As you can see, I got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Go up to the 3 dot and show only selected tool. So that way what I'm selected on is going to show, and then I can click this again, and now you can see this is what I'm working with here. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this like that, and I just hit the S key. All right, so I'm just going to leave it right there at that. The next thing we need to do is we're going to do the same thing with the camera. So let's go ahead and select not the camera inside of scene 1, but the camera, our second 3D camera. Make sure we select that, and let's go ahead and select this here, and that's going to give us these. Let's go ahead and select this and just hit the smooth key there. So now what we have here, let me just go ahead and bring it all in there, because this is going to be the end of this chapter, and the next chapter we're going to get into the text and stuff like that. So this is scene 1. We built all of that out here, grouped it together. We have added a little color corrector, which we can work on later too if you need, or you can spend some more time doing that. Now we have turned that back into 3D space again by connecting it there. So we'll get into the next chapter. We'll add the text, the lens flares, things like that. It's time to animate some text, which can be quite confusing in 3D. However, once you understand it, then it becomes quite simple. Just remember, we're using 2D assets in 3D space. All right, so we're going to get started on that next chapter, which has to do with the text. So in the previous chapter, as you remember, we did the scene 1. We built all that out, and now we have created our scene 1 into 2D space back into 3D. Now we need to add our text. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that through and see where our text comes on. As you can see here, it comes up, it's lies and exploitation. What we're going to do to create the text, we're going to not use, say, the 3D text. We're actually going to use our text plus from over here on our left menu. So I'm just going to go ahead and just grab that and drag it in. And then we're going to go ahead, rename this, name this one lies. And as you can see, we have and exploitation. So let's just go ahead and create the and we also need our exploitations. Go ahead, drag the third one in and rename that. Good. Once you have them all named, we're just going to go ahead into our text and write them out there too. So now, in order to get our text to be this same type, as you remember, you were supposed to go ahead and install the text type. So the font here, click on this and start typing IFC Railroad, which is the type that we need. So go ahead, just select all of them and add that on there. So now we have all of them. And just like we did with everything else, we need to add an image plane to them. So go ahead and add an image plane on each one of those. All right, I like to pull my image planes down underneath of them. So now we have our text nodes here. Let's go ahead and pull our scene 1, our color corrector, and the image plane out of the way there. So I have everything organized the way I want to. We're going to get started here with the lies. So let's start with lies. Let's go ahead, grab the output of that and grab it onto our merge. And what we want to do is move this one just slightly back. So I'm going to select lies. I'm going to come up to the transform. And on the Z, I'm actually just going to bring this back 0.01. Now we need to move it. You see, like it kind of goes over the shoulder over here, and you can see the distance over there. Let's go ahead and we'll move that a little to the left. So I'm going to go minus 0.231. Of course, you want to bring your y-axis. You can bring that down. Try to match it up the best you can. All right, so I want here at minus 0.129. Now, you could go ahead and build one and then start adding the others, because we are going to do different things like, you know, changing the color and stuff like that. But first, let's just go ahead and get them into position. So now we're going to do the and. We're going to do the same thing. Grab that, connect there. And remember, we're going to go transform, and we want this to be 0.01. Now go ahead and try to match it up as best as you can using your guides. Go ahead, bring it over and down. Come over to the lies image plane and copy your y-axis. All right, so make sure that they are on the exact height. The x-axis minus 0.113. All right, so on these, I also did change the tracking because, as you can see, things are a little bit different there. So while I'm here on the lies and just to show you, so I'm going to bring that down to 0.947. So as you can see, that's given this a little bit of space. So I know it didn't look like I had space there, but I'm going to do the same thing here. And now, as you can see, we have some space between there. I'm going to do the same thing here. So exploitation, let's go ahead, drag that here, grab this y-axis, make sure you copy that. So go ahead, just paste that in there. And now we need to bring that y-axis over, and I went to 0.125. I'm going to start with lies, okay? And as you can see down here, it's kind of like got a little reddish. So let's go ahead and hit our shading tab. What I did here was, instead of being solid, I hit a gradient. As you can see, down here is going to be black and over there is white. But what we want to do is change this. We're going to go with some kind of red. I'm going to try. And then I went ahead and just click in the middle here, drag that over. All right, and so you can play with these sliders a little bit. We just need a little bit of the reddish coming in there like that. So you just go ahead, and once you figure out your slider here, wherever you want to put your red, you can also use this color code 993333 here on the Apple, and we'll do the same thing for the other ones. All right, good. So I have my text colored. Next thing we need to do is animate the text. To animate the text, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to come back here and check this. So we can see the lies actually start right around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring that down. I'm going to not use the image plane, but rather I'm going to use our layout here, which is what I use to bring this down. So I'm going to use the y-axis here under layout. We're going to bring this down so that it matches right about where that one is. It's just a little bit above this line. That's pretty good there. And I think we're actually going to be right here, because you can see it comes on there. So I'm going to start it here on 76. And let's go ahead and keyframe that. Once we've keyframed that, let's move forward, and we're going to go to, I guess right there is pretty good. As you can see, it comes up and it stops fully at 97. And we're going to put this back to 0.5. So now we're right there on 0.5. Now let's go ahead and do and. All right, so we're going to start right at 98 as that was coming down there. So let's go ahead and hit that layout. We're going to put this at 0.405, just like the other one, and keyframe it. Now I'm going to move forward right to about 109. Let's go ahead and put that to 0.5. I'm going to grab my exploitation right here on this frame, and let's go ahead and hit layout, do the 0.405. And now let's go ahead and track that forward until frame 120. Okay, 120 is where it comes on there, and put that at 0.5. So now we have our text is going to come on. And now let's go ahead and work on our spline. So make sure the selected tool. So I have taken off show only selected. I'm going to deselect my camera 3D too. So exploitation didn't show up because I didn't keyframe it, it would appear. So now I'm up here and I have the 3 of them selected. I can go ahead and select them. I'm just going to hit S. And then on my trim, you can hit the T if you need to and bring that up. So I'm going to ease this into 45, and my ease out was actually just at 35. So as you can see, it comes up out of the dark here, then it comes up and becomes bright into there. So in order to make these black, let's go ahead, come back here. As you see, it totally disappeared there, and that's at frame 76. So we're going to keyframe our opacity, pull that all the way down. Let's go ahead and just on the shading gradient, let's go ahead and keyframe that. Now what we need to do is move forward here. We're going to go to frame 83. And we're going to pull our opacity up. While we are here, we may as well keyframe that shading gradient as well. As you can see here, this is right about where that starts to change. So as it's kind of black right here, and then right there is about where it starts to change. So we could actually come back one. So let's go ahead and undo that. Let's go back one frame, 82. I'm going to keyframe that, and then we're going to pull all the way forward to this point here, which is where that should actually come up. There we go. And we're going to keyframe it there. From this point here and before that, we want this to be black. Here where this is, I'm just going to select here, and let's just turn it black. You can select on each one of them and just make them black. All right, so as it moves forward, as you can see, it starts black, it's lightening up. It's doing a little faster than what that one does, but in real time, it's going to be pretty good. So you're hardly going to notice the difference there. So you can really fine tune that, get exactly the way you want to do it. However, that's what I'm going to do. So now let's go ahead and do and as well. So I'm going to skip through and a little bit faster because we're doing exactly the same thing. I'll just tell you the keyframes and when to put them there. Okay. So let's go a little bit quicker here. Start with here at 86. We'll keyframe that opacity. Keyframe that shading gradient. Let's go to 102. We're going to keyframe that opacity again. So I'm going to come back here to 98, pull that opacity all the way down. All right, so at 102, just go ahead and do the shading gradient, and then we're going to move forward to 107, and keyframe again. Go ahead, pull that back there and change this to black just like you did before. Now that I've got them done, I'm going to go ahead and do exploitation. We're going to start on 109, hit the opacity, bring that down to 0. Going to hit that shading. Then we're going to move forward to 113, pull our opacity up, select that shading gradient keyframe again. Looks like 119. All right, so at about 119 is where I keyframe again. Turn everything to black again. Quick disclaimer, if something happened, if for some reason you're seeing a bunch of drop shadow down here and I didn't teach you how to do that, I'm going to how to create that again after this step. So don't worry, we'll get those drop shadows in there if you're hearing me discuss this. Now that we have our text finished, we can start adding some lens flare. This section will really help you add a quality look to your edit. Now that we have all of our drop shadow here and all of this stuff is together, let's go ahead and just select all the text, press Command G, we'll group them up. Now I'm going to right click here or press F2, rename it and type in text. Next thing we need to do is create this lens flare. So now I had downloaded something from Vect Easy, which was a lens flare. You could create your own, you could download one or whatever, up to you. Let me go ahead and switch monitors here. So now I'm up here so I can come to my media pool, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to, make sure you go in your tutorial and media file, and then there's the text and lens flare. So this one has that lens flare. Just go ahead, grab that and drag it. And we dropped the lens flare here. So let's go ahead and press F2, rename that to, I'm going to name it LF. I'm going to do an underscore and I'm going to put an L because that's actually going to be on the left. So now I'm going to Command C this because we need 3 of them. So I'm going to press Command V and do it again. All right, so I'm going to rename this one. I'm going to press F2 and I'm going to change that one to LF mid because I want one in the middle and I need one on the right. So let's change that one to LF R. So we got the 3 of them. Now these will be our lens flares, and in order to put them into 3D space, of course, we need to add our image plane 3D. Let's go ahead and do that. So we've got the 3 of these, but we're not finished yet. So I'm going to just bring them down. And what I want to do is add a transform between. Remember, between these, so the image plane 3D and the media that goes in there, this is the 2D space. From the image plane 3D all the way through the renderer 3D2 is your 3D space. Everything outside that is your 2D. So let's go ahead and select the first one. I'm going to press shift space and I need the transform. So I'm going to add that transform. So I'm going to do the same thing with all of them. And remember, it is the XF transform that we want. I'm going to add another merge node. So 3D merge. Okay. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to drag it here. I'm not connecting them to this. I'm connecting them to this one. So let's go ahead and connect just one of them. And then I'm going to connect this merge to that 3D. All right. And we'll get into that later as to why. But for now, let's go ahead and work with the transform. And the reason why we're using this is because, as you can see, this does not look anything like over here. The way to manipulate that is actually using the size and aspect. Now, if I pull the aspect and size like this, I mean, it gives me some adjustment. However, let's reset. What I want to do is uncheck this box. Now I can change the X size, the Y size, and stuff like that. This is really going to help. So let's go ahead and pull that X out. As you can see, it's making it real nice and wide. And now I can take that Y size and I can bring it down, and it kind of makes it more similar to this. And then I'm going to come down to the image plane 3D. All right. And as you remember from before, if we click on the material, we can actually come to its opacity and we can pull that opacity down. So then this way it can be more like what that is. All right. So I've pulled that opacity down, and this one is meant to go to the lies, right? So this is definitely too wide. So let's go back to our transform, and I am going to pull that X size back over because that's so wide. All right, I mean, that's like really wide. So let's go ahead and pull that down. All right, so it's probably going to start something like that or whatever. Now let's go ahead and position that right over the lies. So bring it to the left. It looks like it should be pretty close to the E, and we need to move that forward. So let's go ahead and select the image plane 3D and go to transform. You just want to move it so it just jumps right in front of that. Okay, so then I'm going to use my other adjustment through the transform. I'm just going to get it right there. That's pretty close. So that's the first one. Now let's go ahead and do the middle, which is going to go over the and. It's going to basically be the same thing as this. Actually, I could just delete that transform because remember, that's only a 3-letter. Command C, Command V. That way it's pretty consistent. I'm going to move the X-axis, bring that right over the end. Good. And then I'm going to use that image plane 3D. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. So that's 0.012 on that X or that Z-axis. 0.012. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on this one just to make sure they're all there where they need to be. This image plane 3D, we'll check that material and bring that down. Good. And let's go ahead and do the same thing with this one. Grab it, put it into the merge, transform. This one's actually a bigger word, so we want it wider, right? So let's go ahead and uncheck that box and pull that X size out, make it nice and wide, and shrink that Y size down. Grab the image plane 3D, do the material, and pull that opacity down. All right, now that we've got that part done, hit that transform again and bring it down to the exploitation. Great, and move it over to the right in the middle there, and we can then start messing with the size again if you need, whatever you want to do. Okay, now you can go ahead and mess with all the keyframes and things like that you want, because as you come back here, let's see. So when you come back, as you can see, this is wider, all right? So you can change the width and all that kind of stuff to make it blend exactly the way that is. I'm not going to overly do that specific thing, just pointing out that it's there. I know you're skilled and you can handle doing this kind of thing. Now let's go ahead and select the three of these, and we're going to pull them over to the left. So with these three here, we're going to Command and C them, copy them. We'll click over here, and then we're going to press Command Shift and V, or Control Shift V, to make an instance. So now that we have our instance, as you remember, it creates the exact same thing. Let me go ahead and connect all three of these. Now that the three of them are connected, what we need to do, as you remember, is de-instance them. So let's go ahead to the Z. We'll just go ahead, de-instance, and then we're going to change that to 180 degrees. And I want you to do the exact same thing on all of them. So go ahead and do that. So now that we have them completely done like that, what we're going to do now is we need to keyframe them for where they come on. And in these keyframes, what we're going to do is change the opacity. Now, in this time of doing the opacity, this is where you can spend the time in making them wider and smaller. I'm not going to focus on that, so much. So this is for you to do that part. But I'm going to help you with the opacity. I'm going to start with my LFL, and I'm going to select that image plane. And we're going to go to frame. Okay, I'm going to start here on frame 94. As you can see, it's just starting here. So I'm going to come to our material, the opacity. Remember, this is 0.354, so I'm going to copy that, or whatever you set yours at. Mine's a little bit too strong. You go ahead and fix yours. Just make sure you copy that. And I'm going to go ahead and select that keyframe and drag it all the way down. And then I'm going to move forward. All right, I'm just going to go right there to frame 100. I'm going to paste that. So now that's where that one comes on. Now let's go ahead and move forward for the middle one and see where that comes on at. All right, I'm going to start this one on frame 107. So let's go ahead, keyframe that, bring it down. Go forward to about 111 and paste that back in there. Now I'm going to move up to frame 118, which is about where this one's starting. And we're going to do the same thing for the right one. So I'm going to bring that down, keyframe, and move forward to 122. So now I have the three of them set the way I want, except I don't have them widening, shrinking and widening. That's up to you. I know I keep saying that, but just go ahead and do all that yourself. So now that we have that done, that's great. What we're going to do is just move this merge up. Let's go ahead and select this entire group here. And we're going to press Command G. So that way we can group that up. We're going to right click, rename this one to Lens Flare. So now we have our lens flare, our text, our renderer, and all that good stuff. So right here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select all of this, Command G one more time. Now I have all of that into a group. Right click that, I'm going to rename this and do text underscore flare. So now we're back into 2D space, and when we go into the next chapter, we're going to jump into 3D space, and that'll do it for this chapter. Most of the difficult things are finally finished. We have the foundation laid, and we are now ready to start building on our ability to navigate the 3D space. So let's start adding some people to our timeline and make this 3D stand out. Now we need to disconnect here and turn this into a 3D environment as it's outputting to a 2D again. So add that image plane 3D, click over here, and let's go ahead and add these back in. pull that over, and we're going to connect this. Let's select that render, and if you can, go ahead and use the hardware renderer. And I was having slow playback here earlier, and that was due to the fact that one of these render 3Ds was still on software while the rest were on hardware. That caused some issues, so just make sure that you match everything up correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and pull that back. Let's see if you can remember from the muscle memory, grabbing your camera 3D. As you remember, we have nothing here because we can't see it. You need to go ahead, put that in frame. If you can do that without my help, that's going to be helpful to you. If not, you just follow along. So transform, and we're going to come to the Z axis and put 1.65, and there we go. It's directly in. Now, I know all this stuff is super bright. We're going to go ahead and fix that later. It's not that big of a deal. All the little details will get done at the end anyway. All right, so what we got to do now is see what we're going to build here in scene 2. Go ahead and just play this through and see what comes up from here. Okay, so we can see it's zooming out, and there's some people there. I got a real slow playback at the moment, but it's okay. We have the rain in the environment. It's now becoming a building. This is changing color. We have some lens flare going on, so we're going to be adding more lens flare, and it's nice and wide, so keep that in mind. Now we see it starts turning into a picture here, and then it continues, but it speeds up a little bit here, right? And it's also changing its rotation axis, so we know that's coming up. Just gonna stop there because we can't even see the picture anymore. This is the really important part, is to understand everything that we just learned from this section here, is that we go from 2D space into 3D, 3D to 2D to 3D, and so on and so forth all the way through here. Each time that we did create that, we created that new image plane and put it into a new camera that gave us a new ability to move that scene. So since we can section off that scene, that's what we're going to do between the two of these to make it seamless. All right, and this is really important to get this part right. Let's go ahead and select our camera, 3D4, and we have to go up to the point where that one would have stopped. All right, so right here was the end of the zoom in, and it's got to zoom back out, which is right at 164. So grab your camera, 3D4, go to the Z translation, and we're going to select that. We need to go just beyond the point to where it starts to become a photo and actually ends it there. So let's go ahead and move that forward. Here, somewhere it's around 296. So as you can see right about here, it's becoming almost a complete full photo. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to continue zooming out, and let's go ahead and shrink this one down by pulling the camera back. All right, so I'm going to go right about there. The head looks pretty similar, pretty close there, and we'll start with that. So as you can see, the spline needs to be edited as that's going way too fast to start, so we need some ease in, and we're definitely going to need that ease out. So let's go ahead and jump onto that spline. Select, remember to hit S, and if you need to, hit the T, so that way you can get your ease in and ease out. And it looks like for this, I just left it on the standard easing, so let's go ahead and see how that looks. The first thing we're going to look at, let's just move a little further forward here so we can see what our environment has. All right, so from here, we can see the full environment. I'm at frame 286, but it's not that important for the exact frame number just yet. What we need to do is bring in our media. For scene 2, we need the people. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all the people, drag them in. We also need the environment, okay? So we have the rain, there's more lens flare, and there's a background. So we're going to grab those 3 and also drag them in. And as we did before, we're going to eliminate these merge nodes because we don't need them. All right, let's start with this, and let's go ahead and rename them. All right, so I have everything renamed right here, as you can see. If you want to rename exactly the same as I did, go ahead and do that. Let's just quickly glance over them. So as you see here, we have the blonde girl. There's the man. He's wearing the vest. There's this tall guy with the black suit on, looking a little to the right. And then here's another guy that's wearing a suit. So I actually had created multiple people in suits. There's the woman in black, which is all the way up in the front. She's got that nice black hat on. Then there is this building, and this building, as you can see, actually looks like this quite similarly, and that's due to the fact that I actually just kind of created my own tracing of it, and then I recreated this using AI, Photoshop, and stuff like that. However, in this video, you will see there's actually something that's in front of there. I did not put that. If that's something you want, you can go ahead and mess with the image to make that more perfect for that. Here we have our lens flare as we used before, and this one you can't see anything because it's the video and it's rain, plus the in-out points are not there, so let's not worry about that too much right now. First thing we're going to do is just go ahead, let's move these people over there, the rain and the flare, off to the side, and we'll grab our building. All right, so we need to put our building into 3D space as well. So let's go ahead and bring an image plane 3D to that and connect it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and connect our image plane 3D to our merge 3D. Let's go to our transform. Oh, let me get that back over here so we have our media out and we can see what we're looking at. We do not want this image plane 3D to be on the exact same plane as that, so we need to move it back just slightly. So I'm going to do this at minus 0.01, and just like that, it's actually going to move that back. If you need to, go ahead, check your merge node, and you can zoom into there, because you can see there's actually the two separate here. You see the building back there and him there. All right, so we've got those two separated there. Now we're going to scale up our building. So let's go ahead and grab that and pull it off to scale it up. All right, so my final image size I put here at 2.241. So as you can see, there's going to be nothing in front of him because I did not create a stage or something in front. So that's something you're just going to have to figure out on your own there if you choose to do that. All right, so let me just play that through and see what that looks like there. All right, so as you can see, yeah, we've got all that stuff there. And now we're going to build out the environment a little bit more. Let's see, we're missing our text up here. Let's go ahead and put that stuff in real quick. So I'm going to grab a text node, drag that in, and let's go ahead and put an image plane 3D under that, connect them, and connect this to the merge. So let's start with our text. And as you can see here, we have the P.T. Barnum show, only available today. So let's go ahead and put that text in. Just keep this in mind. As you can see here, we have capital letters, and this is big, and then they're small here, and then big here. Now, they are all capital letters. However, the size difference does come because of the way you type them here. So make sure you do that. And then if you remember what that text was, it was the IFC Railroad. And as you can see, it's like a off black, like a grayish. So let's go ahead and just change our color. We'll start with that and see how that goes. And that is definitely too big. So let's bring it down. Grab the image plane. Let's just put it up here. All right, so we'll do that from the image plane here. Let's grab that Y translation and bring it up. Try to get it to fit right inside of there. Now, as you can see, I did not have a dash, but it gave a little star because of this text. But that's what I'm going with anyway, so no worries. Bring that size down a little bit, fit it in there a little better. So as you can see here, you know, with the way those letters are, that gave me that little bit, that bigger B, and then the smaller stuff there, like this. And then this one was just total capital letters, which really fit that in there. Bring these two together. There's one more thing to add is the rain, but for now, let's not add the rain. We're still going to group these together, so Command and G, and we'll go into this later. So just rename this to environment. And now we need to add our people, okay? So here's where it really gets interesting. We can finally really start working on some 3D stuff, and we're going to put all these different people into their places there. So let's start with the very first one, which is the woman in black. Grab her. We're going to grab an image plane 3D, connect that together. We'll grab another merge. This way we can just keep things more organized. So we'll just grab another merge. We'll put it there, and we have the woman in black image plane 3D. Select our transform for her there. All right, now let's go ahead and connect this merge to here. This way we have the woman in black, and as you can see, she's actually in between the background and the words. So let's go ahead and change that Z value. So now that we did add her, we still need to go all the way back to the beginning here. What was it, around here? All right, and we need to figure out exactly where is it does she show up here, right? So let's just go ahead and pull this over. As you can see, her arm had just started right around here. So we know she is just off camera. So let's go ahead and I'm going to bring her back a little bit because we don't need the plane to be in the same. So we went with 0.88. Now we need to bring her down and over. Okay, so I've scaled her down to 0.467. That's where I had originally gone. And now let's move her over so the arm matches pretty closely here. So now let's go ahead and just move forward a bit here again, and let's see how that pops out there and make sure that she is off screen. And let's play that out and see if it matches pretty good or not. All right, so it's close. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. You can go ahead and finesse all that if you need. So now that we have her there, let me just go ahead and check our merge over here. Let's zoom it out a bit. So as you can see, as it backs out and away, then she comes into frame here. And that's what we're going to do, is create a bunch of people along the line where this camera goes right through the middle of them. So now we need another woman in black. So what we're going to do is we're just going to actually copy and paste this. We're not going to do an instance because it's really going to make it a little confusing later as the people are really in a lot of different places. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. Let's go ahead and stick that there. And now we know the other woman in black is, well, on the other side. So let's just go ahead and select that and move her over. They are not standing exactly even with each other, so we're going to move this one back. So I just moved that one back just slightly. So as you can see, she's in camera, she's a little off camera. They're just a little bit offset. All right. So now we've got the woman in black. Let's move this forward a little bit here. Oh, hold on. Let me go to check a reference. As you can see, blocking the way of that one is the first blonde girl. So let's go ahead, grab Blondie here, and we're going to add the image plane 3D for her. So now let us get some settings here for that transform. First thing, let's go ahead and bring her down in size. So we're going to select the scale. 0.159 is where I went to for that size there. So you can see she looks pretty far away, but once we get our adjustments here, it's going to change that. And our Z scale, let's go ahead, let's select this merge and press 1. This way we get the full environment. And as you can see, she's way forward, but she should be back here somewhere, right? So let's grab our image plane 3D for her, bring our Z value back, forward. You go right about there. So we have this environment like this, and we need to bring her down. So with the Y, we can bring her down. Let's go ahead and check our reference again here, because this is actually what we want to see. Let's try to match that up from here. Bring that over to the left by moving the X axis. And now let's bring this Y down. There we go. We're going to try to match that up pretty close like here. Looks like she would be a little bit further over, more into this area here. So let's go ahead and move that a little right. So now let's just move that camera forward and see how that looks. All right, that's coming out pretty good there. All of this seems to be moving a little faster, so we're probably going to have to just adjust that easing on that camera 3D. That's going to slow it down. So now I'm adjusting that ease in a bit here, or I'm sorry, the ease out. So I might have to reposition the people. Okay, so now these mistakes that I'm making here are just the common mistakes you have to work yourself through. All right, it's not that easy to do this stuff, so it's good that I can make some mistakes and show you where you can improve on them too, because, you know, each time I do this, it seems to be different. All right, so now let me just go ahead and play this out. I just want to see how it looks in the moving out. So as you can see, it looks like the two women in black are definitely going to need to be moved inwards. So, yeah, let's get started with doing that and fine-tune this a little bit. All right, I'm going to rearrange these here. So this is the woman in black on the right, and that's one on the left. This way we know exactly where they are. So let's get started with this one again. Let's bring it back to where it's a little bit closer here. All right, here, I'm going to start at 182. Looks like this woman over here should actually be a little bit further over this way. So I'm going to bring her in. And then it looks like this blonde girl also needs to be a little closer. So let's go ahead and bring her in as well. So she should be right over here like this. All right, so now let's go ahead and pull it all the way back and see what we got there. as I can see, she is already, she is still in there. So I'm going to take that woman in black. I'm going to pull her Z back. We'll see how that is from there. And let's start moving forward. All right, so she's a little bit better, but now the scale is too much. So let's bring that down. All right, let me go back. So I'm moving the one on the right here. See what that does. Let me come back this way. Looks like I'm going to move her over a bit. Try that. It's a little bit better. Of course, it's not perfect. So, but it is better. Let me just scale her down just slightly. And you could also, like, maybe keyframe her or something and have her pull in a little bit. The next two people, you see this man here and this guy here. So we're going to start adding those two in. Two girls in black there. We got this blonde. We'll add her after we get these two guys in. Let's go ahead and grab the man in the vest. And I'm going to grab the one I have as tall man PNG. I'm just going to grab the guy in the vest, which is here. And let's see, what is this one? Oh, you can choose which one of these two guys you want. I think his head is just too much to the side. So I'm going to go with suit 2, starting with this one here. We're going to put him there. Let's get this media out back on there. I'm going to grab an image plane 3D for both of them. Get them set up. I'm going to connect the one with the vest in. All right, go to the transform here. All right, so let's put that merge over here so we can see where we're putting this guy. You can see he's quite close to the camera at this point here. What I did here on his image plane 3D is I put him at 2.41 and scaled him down to 2.18. And now I want to start repositioning him to make him closer to our reference. So I'm going to bring that up over here, which puts him right there. So let's go back to his image plane and let's bring him down. Get the height, try to match close with this. So we're going to grab our X and bring him over this way. Going to be right about there. Alrighty. So now we also need to put the other guy over here, which I guess we'll go with the suit 2. And we're going to connect that. So let's go with our transform here. And we're going to be pretty close to that image plane transform. So let's go ahead on the Z. We're going to put a 2.3. And we'll size him down to 0.218. So now let's try to position him over this way. So I'm going to bring him down with the Y axis. Try to get him right about there. And now let's move over to the right. All right, so now that we're here, we got him in position and he's looking to the right. He's not looking where we want him. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to rotation on the Y, and I'm just going to hit that 180. And that's going to make him do a 180 and look in the direction I want him to be at. So now we have that, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add this girl here. And what you can do is, if you wanted, how about you just copy the blonde itself. I'm going to bring her over here. So this is going to be the blonde there. And then I'm going to copy this image plane. I'm going to paste that here. This way, we know that we're on the same image plane as these two guys, or close to it. That way, I can just connect it. And what you can do then from there is use this transform and actually bring her back to be closer. See? So now we know she's coming back closer. All right, so I brought her back to 2.84, and now I'm going to bring her over right about here. Then I'm going to scale her down, and I have her at 0.108 at the moment. She's looking a little bit big there, though. So let me move her forward a bit, and let's bring her up. Good. And a little over. Yeah, it should be pretty close right about there. So that's about where we're gonna go with her. And let's just go ahead and move forward, see how things look. So now at this point, it looks like she may be too far. So let me go ahead and bring her back again. 8.4. Let's make her a little bit bigger. Go something like that. All right, so now I need to add in these other two guys, which are basically these guys. They're just on opposite sides there, right? Let me just move the blonde girl. We'll put her right over here with that, and we'll move these two guys here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to copy this one with vest, paste it here. I'm going to copy suit 2, which is this guy, paste that underneath of this and connect this one. I'm going to just connect it there. That way, as you can see, this guy is now over here, and we're going to go ahead and pull that back. And we're going to size him up. Yeah, he's definitely going to go forward a bit there. Maybe there, right? We'll just scale him up. All right, so I moved up to 272 on the frames here, and then I started readjusting, getting it there. Now let's check and see how that is. All right, that should be pretty good. I know you see that this is starting to go out, so that means that our environment is going to have to be slightly larger than what it is. Seems my adjustments are different now than they were previously, so I'm going to just increase that building just a little bit here, which means we're going to have to move the text and stuff like that, but that's okay. So we got that one there, and close that. Now we need to add this guy in here, which is here, suit 2. I'm going to copy that. Let me change the image plane and grab this one. Let's attach it there. Okay, so now you can see he's over there, but what we're going to do is move him to this side, and I'm going to bring him down. And of course, now he's facing the wrong way here, right? So we're just going to put that back to 0. Now he's looking back this way, and we're going to move him forward. Well, it's wrong way. There we go. Need to move him a bit forward. Let's see at what point does he show up here. All right, so we'll go right here. I'm at 260. Let's try to size him up, I guess. Move him up, I'm sorry. Move him up and a little to the left. Now let's go forward and see how that looks. He might be too big now. Just a little bit big. Scale him down just a little bit. All right, and let's go back to 260. All right, they're pretty close. Doesn't have to be perfect. So now we have the people in there. We got to, I got to fix some stuff like the P.T. Barnum show up there. We got the text is a little messed up. So go ahead, open that environment again. And I'm going to move that image plane up just to fix that out a bit. There we go. All right, great. Now, so we have all the people and stuff. So we have our environment that's there. And all of this stuff has to do with our people. We can go ahead if you want to keep it organized and just attach all of these to the people's merge. This just helps you keep things organized. As you can see, it gets really messy if you don't organize the things, right? So go ahead and put them together however you would like. Select them, Command G, and now we have that as a group. Rename it. I'm going to name this one for people. So now we have our people, we have our environment, and the next thing we need to do is add all that lens flare. We now have our 3D environment built out well, but we need to stylize it with some lens flare again. So let's get those things in place. So I'm going to go ahead, grab the flare, bring that in, and we're going to grab an image plane. Actually, what we should do is we can open up our people, all right? Because what we need to do is we need to put some of the lens flare on the people, right off of their shoulders, so we may as well use their image planes. Let us just bring back to see where we want to put image plane. So as you can see here, as this girl comes, we're starting to get a lens flare off of her. However, on mine, we're not quite in there just yet. So what I'm going to do is grab this first one. It's going to make a couple copies of it over here. So now grab the first one. Let's find the blonde girl on the left, copy her image plane and put it here. Now how about we grab just another merge just so we can stay organized and stick that into there, and we'll put this merge into that one. Good. So now on this image plane, it is exactly the same as hers. So we just need to move it slightly. So if that's 1.47, how about we go 1.48? We're going to transform. All right, so by moving forward a little bit, we can see that our lens flare is actually down here, but it needs to be up onto her shoulder. So let's go ahead and move that up. I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to move it to the right. All right, good. All right, from here, we're going to use the transform. As you remember, what we did was use size and aspect. So go ahead and draw that out. And we could change that Y size, make it a little bit wider. And as you can see, we are limited to the size of what that PNG is. And that's due to the fact that on our image plane, we also have limited that size. So we can go ahead and scale this up from here. Let's put this back at 1. Just so we can start from 1, that'll be better. This way we can go back in our transform and we can start that back from there. I forgot the exact process that I used when I did this, so that's why I'm making some changes here. So now let's go ahead and bring that back up to the shoulder here. Now we can mess with that transform X and Y size to manipulate that a bit. So I want it nice and wide. And let's change that Y size down. There we go. That's looking much better. Go back into our image plane 3D. You can fine tune exactly where you need. And remember to go to material and the opacity. We can pull that opacity way, way, way down. You can also change the color a little bit by changing the color like this if you wanted to, just so you know. You can also pull your alpha channel down a bit. So here, like for example, just doing that just to show you what you can do. So that way you can fine tune it exactly how you want to do. Now I've got that lens flare for her. Let's move forward to see how that comes on. All right. Now you could do things. You could add glow or whatever. It looks like they also have some like light wrap going on there or something. So whatever, you can figure out exactly how you want to do that to match that exact thing there. So now we've got some more lens flare coming off of her here and off of here. And they also added that, like you remember when we did up here on his head where we instance it. I'm not going to go that crazy with it. I'm just going to put it on the shoulders here like this. We'll grab this flare and we know that this is coming off of... All right, so we're going to throw the lens flare. I'm going to put it here because I don't have any lighting here. I only have light here, and I'm going to put it off of him there. All right, so let's go ahead and grab this guy, which was the vest. All right, so I'm going to copy that one, add this. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let me just copy these two here, add that in here. This is going to make our process a lot easier. So now I'm just going to hook that in. This way, we can just come to our image plane. Make sure we're on image plane. And we bring our plane back to wherever he was. So let's see, the vest, he's at 2.41. So we'll grab this and just go 2.42. All right, good. And now you can see it's right here and bring it up. And I'm going to move it over. And I think it's just, yeah, I think that's just way too wide anyway. So let's go ahead and change that X size down a bit. Yeah, I'm not going to go too crazy with it. Just going to get these things basically into position because this is going to take so long to do this. Next one is this blonde girl. So we're going to copy these two here. And we're going to hook that there. All right, so let's see. Blonde girl number 2 was at 2.84. So we're going to go here, 2.85. All right, and as you can see, it's too high and too far over, so we bring it down and over to the right. Good. It's good enough for me for this video here, so you just keep going crazy with it all you'd like. All right, and then I'm just going to throw just one last one onto there, so I'm just going to copy these ones right here, grab this, drop it in there, add that to... this last guy here, 3.09 is what we want, and we've got that. All right, so now let's move it over and onto him. I get that too far there. Actually, it looks like I might have it set on this guy, not this one over here, but let's move it over to the right and see. Yeah, all right, looks like we are set on the other guy. All right, so let's move it until it comes and pops over the shoulder. It's getting, there we go, right there. All right. All right, looks like 3.36 is the correct location. Now let's go a little left with it. All right, there we go. So now we've got a bunch of lens flares and stuff in there. And you can also play with the opacity as it goes out. So that way, as you can see, it looks so harsh right there. So as you're zooming out, you can change the opacity as it goes. All right, so now we've got lens flare. Let me go ahead and group that, Command G. Yeah, sometimes I just cannot rename things for some reason, so let me try again doing it this way. All right, so it worked with lowercase for whatever reason. Sometimes it just doesn't work. So there we go. We've got our lens flare, our environment, and all that stuff. And that means that we now have scene 1 done. We have our text flare. We're gonna rename this one. This was our clouds. So this is between scene 1 and scene 2. So we're gonna just group this one together and we'll call this one scene 2. So now we're going to stop it here and we'll go into our scene 3 chapter and we'll get this video done. You're doing a great job. At this point, you are becoming very proficient in navigating 3D space and creating animations. Now, we need to change the environment into a still photo and create a new style of animation. All right, so now we are in scene 3. So that's what this chapter is. And what we're going to do in this chapter is we're going to turn all of this stuff into photographs. And then I'm not sure if it'll be another chapter or not, but we'll fine tune the adjustments. So as you can see here, this went into black and white. And then we also have like the rain and all kinds of other stuff going on into there. So we'll make our fine tune adjustments. Plus we'll have to get rid of that lens flare there. And then you can, readjust the lens flare and stuff you have here for that. So I'm going to take scene 2, just like we did before. We need to add an image plane 3D. So I'm going to grab that, put it here. Over here, we need to rebuild our 3D environment. You should be pretty proficient with that. I'm not going to go too slow with it. Grab that render 3D, bring that down. Remember, render 3D, we're going to hit that on hardware. Connect this one into here. Remember, with the camera, we want to change that to 1.65. That brings us into that exact location that we were. However, you can see there is still a little bit of empty space around there, and let's go ahead and just zoom out a little bit further with that camera so that we can see more. So as you can see, this guy is hanging over past the edge there, and so is he. That doesn't work in this photo. So what we need to do is create this white border that goes around there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to take this image plane. Now I'm going to show you the wrong way to do it first, because this is really kind of important for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this image plane. I'm going to paste it here. This way we have the same image plane, okay, and just connect it in there. Now to create the border, and as you can see, that just popped up, there, but that's not actually what we want. We still need to create a border. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a background node. I'm going to attach a rectangle to that, and we're going to connect it to this image plane 3D. And then from here, we can start making adjustments to, say, like the height and the width. And then we're going to change this background node. Let's change the color. We kind of want a gray. We don't want a white. So as you can see, or you can go ahead and use your color picker and come over here and try to match it this way. You can make adjustments, fine-tune adjustments to that. So now since we did do that image plane, it's actually on the exact same level as that. What we could do is go here to 0.01. And what that's going to do is bring it in front of there. And then this rectangle here, let's go ahead and hit invert, uncheck solid, and let's hit border width. So as you can see, I am now able to make a border right there on the exact size of it. But the problem with doing this is that when we go forward with this camera, let's go forward. As you can see, the camera is actually just pretty much going straight back, slight movements. However, the images are also adjusting on the rotation here. Okay, so we actually need to adjust our image plane rotation to get that to match here. And if we have this image plane here, which is the same as this image plane, we have to adjust both of them. So that's why I say, well, that's kind of the wrong way. So we're just going to delete that one, and we're going to copy this again, and we're going to instance it. And I just wanted to show you why we instanced it. I didn't want to instance it without you understanding what the whole point of that was. And as you can see, remember, it's back there. So with the instance, we got to come up here to our transform, de-instance that z-axis for the translation. You can do like 0.001 too if you want to. You just got to get it just in front of there. Just keep it as close as possible. So there we go. Now we have a perfect border around that. Now I have my camera back at 1.65, and we've got this right about there. All right, so I'm going to start this camera here at 292. I believe we were something like 296 or something before on the other camera. I mean, we can go back and check real quick. Let's see what that one was. Yeah, so yeah, 296, right? And this is kind of important as well. We want to make sure that we come back before. So I'm going to go 4 frames before and go to 296 to start our animation out, because you remember this one is easing in, and then this one's going to ease out, which is going to help us keep like a fluid motion going. So now let's go ahead and move forward. All right, so I moved up to about 395, and that looks about where this might have stopped. And then from there, I'm going to set a keyframe here on my Z-axis. So now we know we started at 292, and let's start that keyframe from there. And I'm going to jump back to 294, and I'm going to make some adjustment here to bring that way out. All right, so that's about the size I want that photo to go, and we will adjust our instance later, but for now, let's just try to get this to where we want it to be. All right, so for the next thing we need to do is adjust our spline for the camera 3D. Let me go ahead and just switch this to only that so we can see the camera 3D. Let's select this. All, hit S and T if you need, and we're going to ease this one into about 61, I think that's about where I went. All right, so now we're back here where we can see what's going on in here. So let's see, we're going to move this forward until right here at 301. From this point is where this starts to make a change when it comes to the rotation, and we're actually going to utilize that on the x-axis. So let's go ahead and just move this and see what happens on the x-axis. Okay, yeah, so this is the x-axis, that's correct. Reset it by clicking here on that little white dot when that moves. So we have our keyframe there. We're going to go until we lose sight of this. So right about here, 352, that looks pretty good there, and I'm going to set a keyframe there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just pull this backwards to the negative. And I went just about here previously, so we can come back and check this here. All right, yeah, so as you can see, it's moving along pretty good there, pretty evenly. What I did for this line was just smooth it. Didn't do anything fancy, just smoothed it. So now we have that, and how about we bring this table in and make sense of that? And we need the table, so let's go to scene 3. How about we just bring all of this stuff in right now to prepare that? Just drop your media in there, get rid of those merged nodes as before, and let's real quickly rename all of them. So we have the caveman, mermaid, old woman, and this one will be table. So yes, as you can see, we have that table. All right, so for the wood table, let's go ahead, add an image plane 3D on there. You guys should be really good at using image plane 3Ds by now. So go ahead, connect to the merge. I'm going to kind of keep these more organized, keep those two together. But as you can see, they're kind of on the same image plane, and they are also, one's cutting through the other. So we have to make some adjustments with them. That's why I'm working on them together. For this image plane 3D, let's go to the transform and let's scale it up. So on my scale, I went to 2.521, and let's go back to where we started that animation, which is at 301. Okay, so this is going to help us a lot right in this location, and we can put a reference in over here to the left. So now let's go ahead and set that z-axis. All right, so for this table, what I did was minus 0.22 just to get it a little bit past there. Now we're at 302. We should be at 301. There we go. 301, keyframe that x-axis because we want to keep it to go the same as what we did here. So on this instance, I'm going to just utilize this to jump forward 352. Then we're going to readjust this one to match what we did there, which was minus 39.1. And now you can see that's there. However, we can see over here, it is not quite so far up like that. We need to bring it down to us here. So let's bring that y-axis down. All right, so I'm going to bring it down to right about there. I do believe that it's pretty close. We'll see. So now we have that one there. Let's go back to 301 or around there and play it through and see what we got. All right, so we need to do a little bit of smoothing out there. So let's go back to our spline. And as before, we're just going to hit that S. All right, so we've got that. Now that has smoothed out. So now that that's done smoothing, you can see everything looks different. And that's because I kind of had to jump into the future here a bit as there was some technical difficulties with OBS on the recording. Something happened, so I'm doing a reshoot. Anyway, you can see where we're going to go here with it. However, we need to actually build this all out for you. So let's get back into where we should be. So I'm going to disconnect all of this. So what we should have is just the mermaid, and we're going to build it out the same way that we just did all of this. So let me just grab my reference here and just going to put that over to this viewer so we can see when does she come into the picture here. All right, so we see right around here, close to 325 is where she comes in. I'm going to go a little bit further forward, 342. This way we can get her up here and set the background and stuff. What you want to do is grab your mermaid. You can go ahead and grab a new image plane 3D and get that connected. All right, so we have an image plane 3D connected here, and we're also going to go ahead and create the background and stuff that goes on there, but we're going to do a little differently than what we did before. As you can see, the way I have it designed over here, that's basically what we're going to create here. All right, so the first thing that I did was I added a transform here. For a transform, then we're also going to need the background, so let's just go ahead, grab a background. That's going to need a transform as well. I'm going to put them together like this. Then we can grab this and we're going to just attach it to that transform and create the merge node, and we can bring that in here. And now as you can see, I've got these pipes that come out around the side. So what you can do is come in here, make sure you select that one, just hold Alt or Option and click that, and that's going to create this little thing here. Once you have that, you can go ahead and create a second. Now you can go ahead and bring it, and if you're snapping like I am, it's going to do that, but if you hold the Alt or Option key, you can basically press it wherever you want. That's the layout of the node structure. And let's just go ahead and connect this image plane 3D to here. All right, great. Now we have that and we can see that's where she is. So for this image plane, let's go to the transform, enter Z. I'm going to bring it forward. So I brought it here to 1.17. That brings it up just enough. So as you can see, this background just stays attached to this. We don't have to do any instances or something like that. So that's why we have it set this. And also we want to change the background color. Go ahead, click on there. We're going to grab the eyedropper. You can come over to your reference material, or if you need, you can select your other background, put that into viewer 1. Then you can go ahead, select this background, change your color. I'm sorry, that was off screen before. Let me go ahead, grab that. Just come over, select that, make sure you get the same. So what we're going to do is now we need to create it as the border, just like that. So we're going to select this transform and we're going to deselect the use size and aspect. So for this size, we need to increase it. My final size there was 2.132. Y size 2.275. So on this transform, I actually had to downsize this image. So in this picture, as you can see that transform, I brought the size down to 0.705 in order to match it up into the screen here. So make sure you bring that size down. So now that we have that sized correctly, let's go down here to this merge. And on this merge, as you can see, the operator is over, which is bringing it. So let's go ahead and bring that down to under. Now we have it under, and now you can see the border fits there. But anyway, what we need to do is just make sure your border aligns on the outside here, and this is how we created that. Now the next thing we need to do is we have to animate it so that it comes on, okay? What we need to do is go back to, I guess it was around 325 that came on. Let's go ahead and check our reference. I'm going to put that over here. As you can see, that's just starting to come on. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and grab this, and we're going to bring her down. All right, so from this part, we're going to move forward. However, let me just go here. This was scaled at 1.3, so let me just get this on the right size here. My scale should be 1.3, and let's make sure we keyframe all of this stuff. So we're going to keyframe the X, the Y, and the Z on the rotations. These ones need to be keyframed from this point. All right, we're going to jump up here to 349, and we need to get her to match this. So what we're going to do is grab this Y axis here, and we're going to bring her up. Great, so we got that matching right here, roughly about there. And now we can see this is a little bit turned. We should move this Z axis. Go ahead and pull that a little to the right. I went a little bit far there, but let's see here. There we go. 1.9 is what we should do there. And it looks like this Y-axis is also turned a little. So let's go ahead and turn that. All right, so that's just a slight change there, but I have that there at 4.3. So now we have that matching there. And the next part, she needs to move over to the left. So let's go ahead and move her over there. But before we move her, let's go ahead and set a keyframe here on our X, because this is where she needs to start before we go. Then we'll jump forward and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this forward until right here is where she settles down. So now we're going to move her over there. We'll move it by the X axis, move it to the left. Just got to get pretty far. All right, we'll get her right about there. Let's move this Y-axis a little bit. Now we got to go up. All right, we'll go there, 0.113. Let's move this one back. There's 1.6. And this Z rotation, let's go back to 0. All right, that should be pretty close right there. Now that is this section here for her, and I'm going to jump back into the regular recording so it's going to look different. We have our table set up here, and next will be a caveman and the old woman. So how about we just go ahead and start building them out. So I just copied and pasted the background and transform next to them. I'm just going to copy their transform and merge, paste them onto here. Now let's go ahead, add an image plane 3D on each of them, attach the backgrounds, and now we'll start with the caveman. Let's go ahead, just attach, oops, we got to attach that to the merge, not the render. And let's move back, see where does he come on. All right, right about there is where it comes on. All right, so I moved up to 385 because we can see he's right here, and then we can make the adjustments. We'll go backwards and then forwards. I think that might work. So let's see how to do it there. Let's grab this image plane 3D. Now I have that all attached correctly. As you can see, we got the same size border. That's kind of what we want, and we want to get them roughly right about there. My Z value I set at 2.19. So that's our starting position here at 385. So let's go backwards and see what happens with the photo here. So as you can see, he is just coming kind of straight in there, it looks like. So let's go back to 385, and we should keyframe the X because we want to bring him, you know, kind of down actually. Let's just keep going back. I'm going to start from here. I brought it back to 344 before it comes on. Let's see what it does here. All right, so I can see he comes straight up and he goes a little left. All right, so let's just work with that. So let's go to 344. I only keyframed the X, but whatever. Let's just get started here. Let's bring him down. All right, so I'm just going to keyframe him there. Now let's go ahead and move forward. All right, so it looks like he had come up. Looks like right around here at 365. He's all the way up there. Let's go ahead and bring this one up. And I am way off here on my Z value. All right, so I'm just going to be moving this around a bit, try to figure out where we're going to be here. So let's go ahead and grab this X, bring him over. So right about there, bring that Y down. All right, so I just added a slight bit onto my Z down here. I'm just going to keyframe that since we are there. Bring this back slowly and see what it looks like. From 365, let's go ahead and keyframe that Z axis because we have to bring it to us a little bit. Bring that Z axis in. All right, good. So at this point, we've done a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm not going to smooth it out. I'm going to try to smooth everything together later. Before we get too crazy with it, let's get back over here. Now let's see where we go from here forward. All right, looks like this should be a little higher. I don't want to move my Z-axis just yet. I want to move the Z-axis at the final point. So right about there, I'm going to move my Z-axis, bring that down. Let's see, where was the mermaid? That actually is going to be quite helpful. So let's grab her. So she was at 1.17, so let's try to go with that. All right, but that's going to mess up sizing there. I see where we're going wrong. So you see, I made a mistake, okay? As you can see on the mermaid, we should be at scale 1.3, and I did not scale this up. So let's go ahead and do that. Which that means that I just totally messed up the entire animation from before. So let's just double check and fix this stuff real quick. All right, so from here, as you can see, it is much bigger, and that's because of the Z-axis stuff. So let's go ahead and just undo our Z-axis real quick. I don't want to change that part of the Z-axis, but now everything else is going to be moved a bit. So now let's go ahead and bring this down. Now I'm sorry if you guys expect everything to be exactly perfect and just directly into it, but part of this process is actually making the mistakes, figuring out where you make the mistakes, and then improving upon that. So when I created this animation, I didn't just follow a set standard of things. I had to create all of this, make the mistakes, go back, fix the stuff. And this is really where you get your improvements, and then you can actually implement these things into your own workflows. So it looks like that was the issue, was that 1.3. You can see this is coming up a little bit slow, but we're also going to hit some changes on the easing and stuff like that. So for now, we're just going to leave it where it's at because your final animation will definitely be different. So let's get this back up to the end here where we were at, and that way we can put our z-axis where we wanted. So what was she, like 1.16 or something like that? Yeah. Okay, so now they are on the same. So now we know we're there. Let's just go ahead and check it from this point and see how that goes. Good, that's working pretty good. I'm not going to, suffer through the whole thing there. So I'm going to grab from here and I'm going to move it over into its position. Let me just make sure that my keyframe should be good there. So now let's go ahead and move over into position. So we're going to go a little down. We'll go right about there. And now let's move it over right. All right, I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more and get it pretty close to where she's at. Yeah, there's a smaller, remember, so this is going to hang off a bit. All right, I'm going to change this Z to 0. Now, I know you can see that this is kind of like different than the outside. That's because like a lens warp or something going on there. So now we've got those two into position, and now it's time to do the old woman. So we're going to grab this. We're going to pull that into the merge 3D. We've got the old woman, as you can see there. All right, so now we got to go back and find what location was the old woman at. All right, so you can see here she comes on at frame 391. However, how about we get into the middle here somewhere? Let's see. We'll start right around here at 304 just to bring her up and out and try to get her into position. So I'm going to go ahead and use the image plane 3D for her. Hit that transform. I brought my Z value to pi, and that's about where I started originally before. So we've got her there. Now let's go back here to 391. So now we see she's coming out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I scale this up to 1.3. Let's not mess that up again. That looks better. And now use the Y value and let's go down. Whoops, too much. So I'm going to start it right about there on frame 391. So let's go ahead and keyframe that Y, and then I'm going to come back a little bit. All right, so here, because I just want to get her off the camera. This way, it kind of comes in and we have a starting point where we can actually see. So there. All right, so we've got that. That's our starting point there. Let's move forward a little bit here. Now we can see frame 419, she is front and center. Let's go ahead and bring her up there. All right, now we need to make some Z-axis adjustments, and I forgot to keyframe it. So let's go back, just click back, and let's keyframe our Z-axis, and let's go back to that again. So now we're back to 419. We have our initial keyframe. Actually, let's go to the end of this animation. There we go. So on the end, that way we get one smooth Z-axis adjustment. We're going to bring her just over top of those two. All right, so now I've got her there, but maybe we want her just a slight bit higher here. So how about we move that Y-axis up? So now we have that. I mean, you could bring her whatever position you want. Obviously, this is not the same size, so things could be a little different. And let's pull it back. All right, before I go check that, I'm going to just transition up to here. I'm going to select all my image planes real quick. So this way I can show all of them. Oh yeah, I also need that image plane here. Don't forget this one because that one also moves. So this way we have all of them. Everything is here. So I'm just going to select them all at once and hit S. At least from there we can see what we've got and then make any other adjustments we need. All right, let me transition back. Yeah, as you can see, we have that there. So that's not what we want, is it? So I'm going to grab this transform, which is that's at 1.65, right? So how about we make an adjustment there? All right, so I'm going to start this at 1.57 just to see how things look, all right? By zooming it in just that little bit there has gotten rid of that border. If that's, if you just want to do it quickly, otherwise you got to readjust your border and stuff. I'm just going to do it there. All right, so now we have this stuff set here. This is the table, the background, all this stuff is the people. So let's go ahead and just get that organized a bit. Just going to grab these, drag that over. Now, if you're worried about the way this is, you can hold Alt or Option, just click in here. That'll create this little pipe. You can bring that over. I mean, you can also do something like this, and then you can just pipe them around. That way you can see how it's connected or something, up to you. That's just one way to do it. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and grab all of this, Command G. All right, and we know this is our scene 3. So let's go ahead and rename that to scene 3. So now we've renamed it scene 3. We have all of our scenes. Everything is organized very well within this. Wow, we have so much done now. You have completed all of the animations. We now just have to go back, fix a few things before we put the final touches on your video. Now we're going to go back and we're going to make some edits. So let's see, I don't need the black suit, so I'm just going to delete that. And the rain, we need to add the rain and stuff for that outdoor scene. So we're going to work on all that kind of stuff. So let's work backwards. Scene 3 is good. Let's get into scene 2. So I just double click that to open it. That's one way to open it. I know I told you can just use Command E or right click or whatever, but double clicking also works. So I can grab this environment, because that's where we want to put our rain, right? In the environment, and make that larger. And let's go back into the area for the rain. Actually, to make this more simplified, I'm just going to ungroup this. This way it makes a little bit more sense to what's going on, and so you can see it. You don't have to, I mean, you can do it whatever way you want. Just follow me is okay. Not sure the easiest thing to do, I'm just going to delete it, and I'm just going to come up to scene 2, environment. I know you can't see it, I'm not switching back and forth, but I'm just going to grab the media, bring it back in there, and rename that for rain. So now we have the rain, and what we need to do is put that on the image plane 3D. So go ahead, grab that here, and then let's connect it and see what happens. All right, the image plane 3D, let's go to our transform. All right, before we actually go any further on that, I'm going to grab this merge 3D and I'm going to press 1. All right, because I want to see what's going on here and just show you. So here we know that the camera is here. So that means that the rain is going to be part of our environment as that camera moves back. So in order to keep it there, we need to have our image plane 3D kind of follow the camera. Just real simply, we're going to move this Z to the camera. There we are. Now let's go with the rain, and we got to figure out what location do we want it to start at. I'm going to check that reference, press 1. Let's move back a bit here. All right, right here. So just as we get past her here, that's when the rain starts coming down. So it would appear that the women in black and her should probably be under some sort of an awning. That's what we need to start this at. So we're going to go to 198 for our in. So make sure you select the rain, and we're going to, right here where it says in and out, that's where it'll start the video at. So I'm going to hit 198, and for some reason that did not work. All right, so as you can see, we don't have any video going on there, and the reason for that is because the video doesn't start yet. We need it to start here at 198. I'm going to change my hold first frame to 198. And now you can see we have a green screen with the rain. So we need to add a keyer to that. So we're just going to select the rain, press shift and space, and add a delta keyer. All right, so once we have the delta keyer, we can come up here where background color is. I'm going to select that, just grab the eyedropper, and then find a green spot. And just like that, we have done that. Now press OK. All right, so I'm turning this opacity down to 0.535 because I am just getting a very black screen there from that. So let's just pull that through and see how it looks from there. All right, so now that I'm out there, let's go ahead and move that opacity down even more. I'm just going to go around 0.3, something close to that. So now that we've got that there, we also got to move the image plane 3D's transform. All right, so I'm going to start that right here at 198. Let me go to the merge, press 1, so this way we can see what we're looking at here. So you can see the rain is right in here just behind that girl. And that's when the camera actually pulls out from that. So let's go ahead to the transform, and I'm going to just select that Z this way. As that camera dollies out, we can just pull the rain back with us. All right, so we're right about here. So what I'm going to do is now grab that image plane and bring it to the camera. What I want to do here is I'm going to take a look and see if I can put it just behind him. So let's zoom in a bit. That way we can see it. All right, there we go. Let me just move it a little forward. Oh, wrong way. Go this way a bit. Right about there. Now that will... All right, so I forgot to keyframe it. So just go back. What was it, around 198, I think? Yep, so let me just move it back up there where that was. If you keyframed it, great job. I forgot. All right, and I'll just do it right there. So now that's keyframed, and that's going to follow it back. All right, so we got one more thing to fix, and as you can see, this face in the back, it's done that to me several times, and that's just something that I consistently have when using an instance. So I'm just going to go ahead, open up scene 1, go and double click that. Then we can see we have our instance face and our face. So just going to grab the instance face, delete it, copy the main face, paste that in there, and connect it. Now I'm going to close that down, and as you can see, just like that was corrected. So if you're having issues with either this or the text, that's how you fix it, really simply. All right, so I have to do a reshoot again because there was also technical difficulties here. We just finished having the rain follow the camera. Now it's time to fine tune a few things and then put the final touches on everything. Let me just go ahead, scrub through this timeline. So as we can see, this comes out here, and I want you to see the clouds. So I think these clouds may be moving a little bit fast here. Plus you can see this is probably a little bit too strong and bright. So we're going to make some adjustments to there. And let me go ahead and just scrub through. All right, yes, and we still have to put like distortion, different things like that. Let's go ahead and take a look at these clouds. So as you see here, I have this one. This was the actual clouds I used, which were a green screen from the YouTube. And then I went ahead and manipulated it and made it more like this. I'm going to drag this down into my timeline. So now I'm down here in the timeline. Just going to go ahead and delete the audio. I don't need audio. Now these are moving a little bit too fast, so I'm going to slow it down. So I'm going to come over here to the speed change. Now this may be something on the studio version only. I'm not 100% sure. Let me just go ahead and slow this down. I'm just going to put it like say 85%. And then I'm going to stretch it out a little bit longer. There we go. Just give it a little extra time and slows it down just a little bit. Playing back a little bit choppy. So I'm going to change this free time down to optical flow. And that should be helpful there. In order to use this, what I'm going to do is just right click this and create a new compound clip. So we're going to do clouds. Slow. All right, so I have the cloud slow and I have a compound clip which is now up into there. I'm going to go back over this and go into the Fusion tab. As you can see, this is different than what you have. This was the stuff that we had just created earlier when I did the reshoot. I'm just going to delete that one. Now I'm just going to move some of this stuff, get a little space, grab my clouds. I'm going to double click that. If you followed along with making those clouds, just go ahead, locate that and bring it in here. So I'm just dropping it right here. Rename that clouds slow. Just grab this one. I'm just going to press shift. I'm just dragging it over. I'm going to leave it in here. Now I'm just going to attach everything. And there we go. So now we have those clouds. And I'm going to shrink that down. All right, so I just jumped back here onto the edit page because this gives me faster render and smoother playback. So I'm just going to run it through real quick and check that. So that does look a little bit better there. So yeah, that looks so much better. As you can see, as this comes out, it continues with the clouds as it stopped before. Just right about where the rain comes in and makes that change, makes it a lot easier. If you have made it this far, I am truly grateful for your dedication. We're about to start the final chapter, which is putting the final touches on. Before we jump in, if you like this type of tutorial, I would like to know, what are some of the other styles you would like to learn? Something like Vox, map animations? Anyway, let's apply the final look and get this done. Also, what you're going to have to work on is, you see in this section here, we need to have the color change, and we're going to have to update the color onto the people. So let me just hop back into here. So I've come back here to frame 207. This is about where that starts, right? You should be able to pull through, drag through. This is running a little slow right now, so I'm just jumping to 207. Then you're going to just go ahead and slowly play forward as you see the color comes out. And I'm right here at about 231. So on my color corrector, now on 207, I did set a keyframe for saturation and contrast. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Go ahead, set those keyframes. And then here on frame 231, go ahead and start pulling back your saturation. And here, contrast, you can, change your contrast around if you need to, mess with your gain, your lift. Try to match it up as good as you can to this. I'm not going to go too much further here. This is where you need to learn your fine tuning, so go ahead and match it up as good as you can. Next, we're going to come forward. Let's do our text and flare, okay? So our text and flare is next. Let's go ahead and open that up because we're going to work with our lens flare. So as you remember, we put the lens flare onto this text, And as we go forward, this lens flare is actually probably too strong for you, right? I've already done mine, so I have to kind of fix that up. All right, so I'm pulling back to frame 222, okay, where this is nice and strong. And as you see, I've got my image plane 3D here for the left, and all of this, as you remember, is instance. Now, I just want to mention, if you are having any issue with media going offline or all of your stuff turning red from this point forward, just go ahead and delete your instance here. Not all of this, just the instance media itself. Copy these, paste them there, and reattach them. That'll take care of your issue there. When it comes to the keyframing here, we're going to start on frame 222. As it pulls out, I got to frame 268, and as you can see, I lowered my opacity to 0.47. This way it's not as strong. Otherwise, it's really going to be quite dominant there. Then you can go ahead and check your other image plane 3Ds. Under the material, again, opacity is down there. Everything was keyframed exactly the same on these, and then your instances will pick that up as well. So I'm going to go ahead, just close all this, as we will be finished with that. Command E, bring that down. Clouds. All right, let's open that up. All right, so for the clouds, as you see, that's there. What I want you to do is go ahead and grab that clouds media. If you made it, bring that and drop it down inside here now. So I'm bringing the cloud slow. I'm going to drag it in here, rename it. And I'm just going to take this one. I'm going to just press shift, pull it out, get this one in here, and attach it all. Now those clouds will be back, and that should be working well. We'll check that later. Next, we have to go to scene 2. We're going to fix up on scene 2. So go ahead, open that up. I'm going to ungroup this just to make my life easier. That's up to you whether you want to or not. Just right clicking and then going up to ungroup. And what I'm going to start with is the people. Then we're going to work on the lens flare later. So I'm going to open this, and as you can see, I have already added some color correctors. Just going to go ahead and start deleting them so I can be on the same page with you. Since I'm right here, currently working on frame 268, I see this blonde girl here, which should be this one. So I'm going to press shift and space, and I'm going to hit the CC for color corrector. And we're going to do the same thing as what we did with this board up here, which is take some saturation out. All right, we don't need too much saturation there. I'm going to pull a little tiny bit of contrast, not much, just a tiny bit. Then you can go through and make some of your other adjustments. Just try to get that how you would like it. I'm not going to go too crazy with it. As you can see, you can really mess some stuff up. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. I'm not going to mess around too much with it. So I'm just going to reset that gamma. All right, so I'm just going to leave it right there where that is. And I'm just going to copy this color corrector. Then I'm going to select each one of the people and add that same color corrector to them. Now that's done, I'm going to close this up. So we have the people. I have that finished. Next, we'll do some lens flare work. All right. So as you can see here, I've added a Gaussian blur. Let me just go ahead and I'm going to delete each one of them. So that way we're on the same page again. I'm going to pull this forward. All right, so I want to start back here. This way I can see all of them at once. And I should start working with this guy here. So I'm going to come over where this is, press shift and space, and add a Gaussian blur by typing GAUS, add. So we have this, and now way too spread out. So let's go ahead and start pulling that down. It's got to go quite a bit. I'm going to go right about there, just over 2. You can fine tune adjust it. Go ahead, go back and forth through them once you get it and figure out exactly where you want. And you can also keyframe them if you need. All right, so now I have that lens flare is done with that. Next, we need to put the very final touches. All right, so what I want to do for that is actually come closer to the end. Now we see we have the old woman in the middle and this. What we can see from here looks like there's a prism blur because you can see the RGB is being distorted and there's lens distortion plus a vignette. And here you can see we do not even have a back. And if we're going to do a vignette and we don't have a background, nothing's going to actually matter there. We are now working in 2D space again. So we can start using our 2D space nodes. Go ahead, grab a background, attach that here. It's going to create a merge and cover everything up. So what we need to do is on this merge, we're going to change our operator to under. And what that does is moves it underneath of everything that is there. So now we have a background under. And as you can see here, I have already created this stuff. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to create new ones with you. So let's go with lens distortion first. Shift and space and start typing lens distortion. open this up by pressing this tab, and now we can see this. Now, if I pull this distortion to the left, it's going to go the opposite way, but I want you to see it. So as you can see, it starts twisting it away. However, here you can see it's twisting towards us. Now, if you're trying to fit something into like, you know, an old style TV or something, this is how you do that. Now, let's just go ahead and pull it to the right a little bit. All right, so it does get quite distorted there, so let's just keep messing with it until you get it the way you want. All right, I think that's pretty good for me right there. Now let's add the prism blur. Here we go for prism blur. As you can see, it's just going crazy right now, but that's okay. We're going to mask this, and to do that, let's just grab an ellipse and attach that into the mask input. And as you can see, now it's only doing it inside there. However, we need to invert it. So now that I've selected invert, you can see it's happening on the outside. Before we do anything, let's adjust the width. All right, we want it to look pretty good right in that area, and then everything outside of that we want to have the effect. So let's grab our prism blur, start making some adjustments there. As you see, the aberration strength and distance is quite far. So I'm going to pull that distance back a little. All right, so I'm going to go there, 0.28, and let me just pull this strength down a little bit, see what happens. All right, so I'm just going with it right about there. And now you can see the lines are really harsh on there. So let's go ahead and select our ellipse again, and we can then soften the edge. Let's go back to prism blur, because in the prism blur, there's also vignette. We can actually just add our vignette using this. All right, so I am actually controlling my vignette with this. I'm going to bring my height down just a little bit like this. All right, and then I'm going to lower this a little. So instead of actually adding a vignette, I just wanted to show you, you can actually create your vignette in your prism blur and make that even easier. All right, congratulations on creating that full edit. Thank you so much for being with me all the way to the end. And if you really like this, go ahead and take a look at this video here where I teach you the importance of power bins. And I'll see you in the next one.